Welcome to the Leadership Society Speaker Series. The theme this year is tensions, business, civic society, and politics. I'm Brian Lowry, professor of organizational behavior at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And today I'm speaking with Suzanne McCormick, president and CEO of the YMCA. Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Hey, Brian, I am glad to be here.
Fantastic. So, hey, can you start by telling us about the YMCA? When was it founded? What is its mission?
The YMCA was founded in London, actually, in the year of 1844. It was founded by a gentleman by the name of George Williams, who had a vision of helping to serve the young men who at the time were working in industrialized or newly industrialized England. And what he witnessed was that they were leading lives that were fairly dreary. Lots of hard work, lots of long hours, not a lot of positive socialization. And the majority of these young men who were working in these situations had mostly migrated into the urban areas from more agricultural settings. And so they left behind their support systems and their families. And he pulled them together originally with the intent of bringing them together with the commonality of their Christian faith. And it was a support system, and it was positive socialization. And that came to America a few years later. The first YMCA was started in a church in Boston in 1851. So we are nearly 175 years old. And when it came to the United States, very similar intent, again, focused on young men in fairly newly industrialized United States. But as I hope folks know now, that mission has grown and evolved. The idea of being a place where someone can reach their potential with all the supports they need continues to be foundational to who we are. But obviously, we have evolved so that today we are not just focused on young men. We're not just focused on young Christians. We are focused on helping people of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, demographics, beliefs, to have a place where they can belong and feel safe and reach their best potential as a person, as a family, as a member of a community.
So, how else has the Y evolved over the years? I'm curious. I mean, it's obviously not just young Christian men, but in what other ways has it evolved? Like, if I hadn't been to a Y in a long time, or I've never been to a Y, what would I expect to be in a YMCA now?
I think a lot of people, when they think of the Y or the traditional Y, was very focused initially on, let's just say, athletics. So there was a lot of, let me back up and say, also our purpose has always been to focus on spirit, mind, and body. So this triangle of those three things we believe makes a healthy person in a very holistic way. So a lot of the emphasis in our beginnings was focused on sort of spiritual well-being, but also physical well-being. Today, and so you would go into a Y and you would see, and you still see this today, like amazing places to go and focus on your physical health. We're very well known for the work that we do in teaching folks around the country how to swim. But what you will see now when you walk into a Y, I think, is a place that is much more focused on the holistic well-being of individuals and their families. So while we still focus on that physical health, in so many Ys now, you will see early childhood development. We are the largest provider. We are the largest nonprofit provider of child development, childcare in the country. You will see a lot of programming for young people, character development, skills training, tech training. We're the largest provider of out-of-school time programming for young people in the country. And what you will see today that you would not have seen back in the mid 1800s is we have a huge population of seniors who come into YMCAs, both for the socialization and for well-being activities. You also will see tons of families in YMCAs, either doing activities together or doing activities individually. The other thing that you will see, YMCAs, I think in the past were somewhat insular, provided their programs within their walls. Now, when you walk into many YMCAs, you will see that they are a place where other nonprofit community partners are also working to meet the needs of children and families.
Mhm.
Lots of Ys now have healthcare providers that are co-located. Some of them are involved in housing development. So it's really what are the needs of the community and what are the gaps in the community, and then Ys try to fill those gaps.
Got it. So I like that you ended with communities, because a lot of what you talked about was about individual, like the mind, body, and spirit.
Mhm.
But you end with community. And one of the things that I'm interested in and I really want to talk to you about is the kind of fractured nature of society right now. There's a lot of conversation about this. I think it's probably most prevalent in conversations around politics,
Yes.
but you can think of it around all sorts of dimensions. Religion right now, ethnicity and race. There's a lot of um, misunderstanding or inability to come together across these lines of difference. Like, what role does the why play in that, if at all, if any?
we we like to play, we like to think we play a very significant role, and we aspire to play an even bigger role. Let me just start at the foundational level. One of our mantras at the YMCA is that we are for all, that we want to be a place of bridging and belonging for anyone in community, and we really are about strengthening communities. That's one of our core missions. And one of the ways we do that is simply by being a neutral place where people can come and they can feel safe. They can feel like they're not going to be judged, and that they can participate with their whole self. One of my favorite stories, I'm going to tell you about a specific project or initiative that we're involved in that we're really excited about. But one of my favorite stories to tell is in my first year in this role, which was only a year and a half ago. I've been in the role for about 2.5 years. I was talking with one of our leaders in a very small town in Georgia, and we were talking about the conversation about polarization, and it was around political polarization and how that shows up in our communities. And what she said to me was, she said, "Suzanne, when you walk into my Y, again, this is in a small town in Georgia," she said, "you are neither a D Democrat or an R Republican. When you walk into my Y, you are a Y kid, you are a Y family, you are a Y senior." And I thought that was just a lovely way to describe the feeling that we aspire to create within all of our programming, that people can show up and participate, and our hope. And now I'll tell you that we're also trying to be way more intentional about how we create opportunities for people to be able to talk about their differences.
Can I ask
Not
a question about that story? I'd have a question about that story. I love that story, but I do have a question about it, which is, in America right now, it's communities are demographically polarized. I mean, so it's by that I simply mean that it's if you're in a community, it's likely to be the case that you might not be a D or an R when you walk in, but mostly because only R's live in the community or only D's live in that community. So, when you or have a physical space in the community and the communities are so segregated, how do you deal with that? How do you then try to make connections across boundaries?
So I will say, while what you describe is absolutely true, what does play out in Wise is that people from different sides come together, and they do set their differences aside. Every time I've told that story, it has resonated with someone who says that's absolutely true for me. Like when I go to my Y, I don't worry about what my political beliefs are. Like I just want to participate. I want to be friendly with the people around me, and perhaps it's artificial turf, but it's turf that we're trying to use now in a more intentional way. And one of the ways that we're doing that is to actually bring people together who do have differences we're partnering with three other national organizations, an initiative that we're calling Team Up. We're partnering with Habitat International, Catholic Charities USA, and then Interfaith America. And the project Team Up is all about training our staff, our volunteers to be ambassadors around intentional bridge building. And we're using the mechanism of volunteering together or participating in a project together, intentionally bringing people of difference together to experience what it can be like to not necessarily agree on your political differences, but to develop some understanding of the common ground that you may share. And I'll give you a specific example. One of our YMCAs in Florida who is participating in this, it's the YMCA of Florida First Coast, which is, I think it's Jacksonville, if I'm wrong on that. But they are partnering. So historically, Christian organization is partnering with the Jewish Community Alliance in that community. And they have launched together a project as part of this initiative called Together Against Hate, promoting unity in our community. And so they are hosting together this monthly speaker series in their entire community that people can participate in either in person or virtually. And they are talking about tough topics like prejudice, prejudice in faith, in race, anti-Semitism, ethnicity, prejudice around the LGBTQ plus queer community, gender, you name it. So that's an example where we're trying to use our platform of maybe artificial turf neutrality to bring people together. We're just scratching the surface on it, but we really see we have an opportunity to do more of it.
And that also makes me wonder about what is the demographic makeup of the people who are in the Y. So I opened with like if I hadn't been to the Y, like I have been to Y in the past, and my partner actually is in Phoenix right now, and she dropped her mom off at the Y for an event, so that we have some sense of that. And what she was saying is like at least in her community, that Y, it's like it's not, I guess it would be like not class diverse. By that, I mean, like, the surrounding area has a certain demographic makeup and that represents what you see in there. And so I'm just curious, what's the broad demographic makeup of the people who participate in the Y these days?
So we have Ys in serving over 10,000 communities across the country. So we look like America. But depending on what Y you go to, again, our goal is that Ys reflect the communities in which they are serving. And so you will see some Ys in very urban areas that have, for example, a higher degree of diversity than you might find in a YMCA in to be honest, in perhaps an affluent suburban neighborhood. So we have Ys that are urban, we have Ys that are very rural, all throughout the country. We have Ys that are serving in majority minority communities in the southern states of the country. So really, I would say they reflect the demographics of the country. Having said that, not every YMCA is as diverse as we want it to be. And so, that's our truth, and it's our opportunity as well.
Because one of the things that it strikes me is like I think of the Y as a third space, and that language is usually meant to convey not home and not work. You interact with people, right? And
Yes.
there's been some people argue a diminishment in third places, and that now third places require resources. So you can think for a while, Soul Cycle was a big thing, but that was in some ways like a third space where people went for workout, but really they went for community. And so I wonder if you think of the Y as a accessible third space, and if so, what do you think of as, I don't know if you've been thinking these terms, but what's the Y's competition? like when you're like, okay, who do we think of as equivalent to us to help us understand how you situate the Y in the community?
Well, I think it would be easy for us to say gyms are our competition, but that's so um, it's so one dimensional, because yes, while we have gyms, it is such a but a sliver of who we are. I would say, Brian, and I do say this often, I feel like the YMCA is in a category of one. Like, I don't see an organization in this country that focuses on the lifestyle continuum that we focus on. So you walk into a Y and you can see infants and you can see seniors in the same space. And there are few organizations in this country where you will see those different populations side by side. Even you might see like a here or there a community center in some towns in America, but as a movement with consistency, I don't think there's another organization that compares with us. And I would say people who go to YMCAs, and let's say they do go to YMCAs to initially to work out, I think they will say that there is a sense of belonging and connection there that they feel that they will never feel in a Planet Fitness or a Life Cycle gym, or because they're not introduced to the other spectrum of opportunities in those settings that they absolutely are in a YMCA.
Hmm. And do you all receive a lot of government funding?
I will say government funding is, in the last several years, has been one of the areas where we've seen YMCAs see the greatest revenue growth. And part of that is because of the role that YMCAs played during the pandemic. Many YMCAs shifted their focus away from their traditional programming to, for example, meeting the emergency needs in their communities. Many of our YMCAs got ARPA funds to provide childcare for first line workers or like both first responders and medical personnel. You got ARPA funding to set up remote learning for kids, to do senior check-ins. We saw a significant number of our Ys become providers of food in communities because they were easy to get to, well-known places without the stigma of going to a food bank. So over the last several years, we have seen an increase in government funding for these core social service programs that many had been doing, but really demonstrated that they could do more of through the pandemic. So yes, we do. So yes, many of our Ys do receive government funding, some at the federal level, but then also through their states. The other area that we do also receive some federal funding is we have a strong partnership with the CDC. Many Ys do, within their programming, do chronic disease prevention within our health pillar. So that is sometimes funded through CDC.
I see. What would you say about the claim, given that the Y is helping in places where the government is breaking down, like that in fact the government should be providing these services, like the childcare. You said you help provide a lot of childcare, or and that people are hungry and you're helping feed people, which is obviously admirable, but arguably the function of the government. So this goes to the argument of the tension between like civic society and government, and you have this, and what you're describing, possibly this place where philanthropy or a nonprofit organization, in this case, think of the Y, is serving a role that maybe, arguably, could be played by the government. How do you respond to that?
Well, so Brian, I have spent my entire career in nonprofit leadership, all in human services, and I've been part of that debate for many years now. I have come to sort of reconcile that notion of, well, the government should do it. I mean, the reality is the government is never going to meet all the needs in the communities, and it's up to communities to also meet the needs. And so I see it as, I don't know if you want to call it a three-legged stool or a four-legged stool, but it's got to be a mix of community investment in what the community needs, I think government investment, and then philanthropic investment. And I think we're one of those organizations. We do put a lot of effort into our advocacy work, advocating for fair and thoughtful investment by our government, both at the federal level and at the 50 state level, in the programs that are, I would say, basic rights. So we try to couple that with our own philanthropy. And, I think there will always be that tension. And that's why we're constantly trying to make the case that we need government funding. We will do our part. We will engage communities to do their part as well. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think I've been in this line of business, in this line of work for too long to think we're ever going to totally figure it out.
Yeah. No, it's a tough problem. I agree. And what is your engagement with private industry? Do they provide resources? Do you get philanthropy from big private firms, organizations?
We do. We have some very strong partnerships with some national foundations who are investing in areas of our work. We are growing I would say, our strategic partnerships with corporate foundations or, companies who want to invest in our work. Again, there are specific areas. For example, one of our major foundations is very interested in investing in our YMCA camping programming, which is one of the greatest youth development programs that exists. And then we have other funders who are very interested in youth development, civic engagement for young people. So yeah, the answer is yes. As you know, companies now and foundations have become so much more sophisticated in their articulation of what they care about. And so, we have to work to make sure that we are entering into those relationships in the spirit of partnership, that we've got a shared aspiration and shared goals about what we're trying to achieve. But yes, we do.
Yeah, and that last part is really important. I'm curious, how do you identify what the shared goals or where that space is? Because going to the kind of again the tensions we're talking about, in some cases you could argue that some private industry is motivated to keep government out of certain spaces, and one way to do that is by promoting philanthropy or nonprofits to fill those spaces. And so how do you I just wonder how you navigate that, because it seems like also a complicated space when you're dealing with private industry and you're getting government funding. Like, where do you sit and how do you manage those relationships?
I think it doesn't take long to help our corporate partners to see that they're never going to be able to fund all the programming that needs to happen. I mean, it does get back to like that mix. I will tell you that in my conversations with our corporate funders, it is less about them wanting to fund us so that the government doesn't have to. That's actually not a common conversation that I find myself in. It's more about, can we deliver on the outcomes that they want to achieve? It really, where I find you have to have a lot of integrity is around their intention. Is it around they want to invest because first and foremost it's about their reputation with their customer base, or what's the motivation behind the desire to invest in certain programs? And that's where we find we have to be more discerning in motivation. I haven't found myself in that many conversations with the corporate world that's saying, don't advocate for government funding if we give you this. They tend to see the need for both. That's been my experience.
And when you think about the future of the Y, what do you see? So when you project into the future, where would you like the Y to be, or how would you like it to continue to evolve?
Well, two things come to mind. One is this work that we're doing around intentional bridge building. I would love 10 years from now for people in communities to be able to say, not just that the YMCA helped them or their child or their mother or their father become a better person, or that the YMCA improved, one of their individual lives. I would love for people in communities to say that the YMCA helped heal our communities during this time of polarization, because we were that place where we could come together and we could talk about differences and we could talk about hard things and we could do volunteer work together, and that we were able to strengthen that fabric of civility. That's one of my probably fairly idealistic aspirations. And then connected to that is our continued focus on how we present our Ys as a place where someone can have really their holistic well-being attended to, not just physical, not just mental, but that there are other nonprofits partnering with us to create stronger families and stronger communities. That's also what I want to be part of our legacy in the future.
Well, I certainly hope you achieve those goals, because that sounds fantastic, and I'd love to live in a place there where these kind of divisions are bridged, and we do have healthy communities, and people are happy in those communities. So I really wish you luck, and thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity.